How do we equip our families with a biblical worldview? How do we prepare the next generation for life? How do I grow in my walk with the Lord and in my marriage? If you wrestle with these questions, you are in the right place to find answers. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford, and today's guest is Charla McKinley. She is the founder and creator of Beyond Personal Finance and the Beyond Personal Finance curriculum. She's a CPA with over 25 years in the corporate and private sector. She's also a homeschool mom who wants to help families make smart decisions in teaching their children about finances. But before we start our interview, this episode is brought to you by my book, Leading Well at Home, How Husbands and Fathers Can Biblically Lead Their Families. So have you ever thought, I want to be a godly husband or father, but I don't know where to start? Have you ever heard that you need to do something to equip your family, but didn't know how to begin? Well, if so, Leading Well at Home will show you how you can love Jesus Christ, love and serve your wife and children, and take responsibility for discipling your family. You'll be encouraged and given action steps that you can apply so that you're moving forward. You can buy it online through our website at entrustingthefaith.com or leadingwellathome.com or anywhere books are sold online. You can also get a free excerpt on our website. All that information is in the show notes, so you can check it out. So now let's jump into today's interview. So I'm excited today on today's episode to introduce you to Charla McKinley. Charla, I am so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Hello to everyone. I thank you for taking the time to talk with me, for sure.
It is our pleasure, and I know the audience will get a ton out of this today. For those not familiar with it, what is the Beyond Personal Finance and the Beyond Personal Finance class?
Sure. So Beyond Personal Finance is a beefed up game of life, kind of game of life meets Dave Ramsey. So game of life tends to be fun, but wildly unrealistic. And Dave Ramsey and folks like us in the finance world, we tend to be a little dry and a little boring. So in order to capture the attention of my teenager, I created this curriculum where I took the truth of personal finance principles and I married them in a game of life, choose your own adventure format where I take the kids from age 22 to 42. So there's 20 lessons, real good, truth-filled lessons, but then I let them experience it by making their own choice and create their own budget lesson after lesson so they can really see that each choice matters and each choice leads to the next set of choices that you get to make, which have financial consequences. And so it's eye-opening for teens, even skeptical teens. This tends to be the best class they've had, the most practical class that they've had.
Wow. Now, I agree with you. Playing life, you get the money and you get the little cards, but everything feels wildly out of context. And in terms of being able to be applicable in what you're doing. Is that really kind of the motivation that started you on this path, just to be able to have those conversations with your kids?
Yeah, so exactly. So I remember, I'm not even sure my family has finished an entire game of life because we keep pausing, specifically, I keep pausing to insert a lecture on, the first choice that you make is, are you going to go to college or are you going to do a trade? So of course I had to put some context there. And then, my son goes on and he picks the college route. But then, the career choices are things like professional athlete for $100,000. And every time you spin a 7, you get paid an additional $20,000. And it's like, what? So again, we had to stop there and have a lecture. Then, he goes down and he's got this blue car and he gets married and he sticks this pink peg in the car. And I'm like, wait, this pink peg is going to there's more to it than just sticking a pink peg in. And then, and then the kids, and finally, I'm sure my son is like, okay, just stop. This is exhausting. So I'm motivated because when I was in my 20s, that I learned the hard way about life and how expensive it was. And I have a lot of real waste and real regrets in those years that I didn't want for my son. And so I created this curriculum. He was a little bit bored with the Dave Ramsey curriculum that I bought. I never really planned to write it myself, but he was bored. And this is such an important topic that I wanted to make sure he was paying attention. So I took that, game of life experience that he was eager to do, but then put the context around it so that he still felt like it was a game. I invited some of his friends to take that first class. And, each lesson, you end with a savings number. And you see every lesson, your savings rises or falls based on the choices that you've made. And of course, I even have wild cards like your HVAC breaks and you have to pay $7,000, or your baby poops on the couch. You have to pay $350 to have it clean. Instead of wild cards like you win a beautiful forehead competition, you get paid $20,000. Like that's actually a card in the game of life. So it's a class where they learn the truth, but in a fun, interactive way, rather than this wildly unrealistic or a little bit too dry to capture their hearts.
Awesome. It sounds like you're doing really kind of two levels of activity there. One, you're kind of gamifying it so it's fun. There's problems to solve, challenges. They get to make a lot of decisions, but then it's also safe because they're not 24 years old, having bought their first house and realizing, wow, maybe I could have made slightly better decisions at this point.
That's exactly right. One of the things that is the toughest to watch in my students is, in the very first class, they pick a career and the college that they plan to go to. And I always advise parents, because you can do this at home. I always advise parents, hey, let them choose whatever they want because the numbers are going to show them soon enough. So they'll pick a fancier college and they'll end up with student loan debt because I don't let them choose. I don't let them tell me, oh, I'm going to get scholarships to cover it all. I'm like, well, that may be the case, but let me show you what happens if you don't, right? So they'll have a student loan at the beginning of my class, and that student loan sits on their budget for 10 years. And week after week, I hear from these students, man, I wish I could have paid cash for my car, but I have this student loan. Or, man, when are we getting done with this student loan? Man, when are we getting? And I go, yeah, that's right. In reality, the good news is this is all pretend. And the best way for you to avoid student loan debt is to never have it in the first place. So when it comes time to making this choice for real, they have got a visceral hate of student loan debt because they've had to hold it on their future books in my class for 10 lessons. It's half the class. And so they really do, they feel it in a way that a lecture can't ever convey. They went in to my class knowing student loans were bad. But when they got out of my class, they felt it. And so I genuinely believe, and I've heard now, I've been teaching it long enough, I've heard now from students who have gone on to college, and their parents are telling me these kids are making wiser college choices because of your class. And it's really not, I really can't take all the credit because I'm not lecturing them into the truth. They are experiencing the truth. I'm just there to watch it happen.
That is powerful. So they're learning on their own, under their own volition, under their own choices. You're having conversations with them as they're having this dialogue with you about, okay, I'm looking at this. I want this kind of job. I'm looking at this kind of house. Ooh. And then they get a couple lessons in, and then it's like, man,
That's right.
can we go backwards a little bit? And it's,
That's
no,
right.
we got to keep going forwards. We don't get to hit like the control Z, right? You can't undo. You just,
Exactly. And, because of the video games that they play. I mean, I remember watching my son, he would be playing a video game. And then when he made a wrong move, he just went and hit reset before the game saved. And I remember just thinking, that that isn't how life works. And so inevitably, they will come to me and they want to change the choice they made. And they, the college or the student loan debt or the career or, the house, whatever. And I will tell them, no, in reality, you can't change the student loan debt. You can change your career, but you'll have to, you're going to have to take a step back before you take a step forward. And so they really do learn the permanence of the choices that they make. I also have them select a spouse, and then they have children. And we talk about, it's about during those children years where they begin to see how expensive life is, right? And they say to me, well, okay, if I change careers, what do I need to do? And, I'll say, well, a lot of times you have to go back to school. Okay, I want to do that. And I said, yeah, but, think it through. If you go back to school, when you have young kids, when are you going to spend time with your family? Like you can't just press a button on life. And so, and then of course, they hem and haw, and I'm like, but good news, when it comes time to make the real choice, now you can take that real choice more seriously. So even if you can't undo these choices in this class, and again, I just think that is super powerful. No one is lectured into making consistently good choices. They have to experience it. I mean, I've been burned so many times because I was determined to do it my own way. And this way, it's kind of like training wheels. I'm letting them do it their own way, but really with the fake money, so that they, by the 20s, when it's real, they're ready.
No, that's huge, because I know, man, yeah, I've made decisions. I wish I could hit the reset button on. I can't. That they sounded good at the time. I was convinced they were right, and they weren't. And I like that. I recently was listening to a podcast, and the guy was talking about sort of borrowing someone else's diploma, that idea of using someone else's knowledge and experience.
That's right.
Instead of your own, because there's a lot of blood and sweat in our own experience. So it's a whole lot easier to learn from someone else.
That is correct. Absolutely.
So in terms of the age groups, or, the ages that for this curriculum, what are sort of that range that you would say, hey, this is the sweet spot for that?
Sure. So, my overarching message in this particular curriculum, and really just in my brand, is the quality of your life often depends on the quality of your choices. And so by waking up to these choices, you tend to have a life that is more in line with what you would want if you pay attention to your choices. And so my first message is, you got to decrease the cost of your college by studying for scholarships or going to community college or, taking AP classes and getting credit in high school. So I really am trying to get them to have a good high school experience and take high school seriously and make wise choices in high school. So I really love the kids that take this class to be in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, because, even though I've had a lot of seniors in my class and they love it and they get a lot out of it, that first message of your GPA in high school will open doors for you later. Your experiences working in high school will open doors later. And, if they're hearing that message for the first time as seniors, they might not be able to take advantage of as many opportunities. So I like to get them young enough, but, certainly before they leave the house and strike out on their own, they ought to take this class. So if anybody's listening who's got a senior, it's not too late at all. But if you've got an 8th grader, it's not too early as well.
Okay.
The math is very easy. I mean, as far as math goes, I give them raises in class where, because I'm trying to emulate life. And so if you do well in class, then you get a raise. And, so you kind of have to know from a math standpoint, if you get a 10% raise, you have to be able to calculate what that is. Okay. So there is still a math component, but it's not so difficult that even the more mature middle schoolers couldn't handle it.
Okay. That makes sense. Cause I'm thinking through my own kids. My kids are freshmen, 8th grade, 4th grader. So 15, 14, 10.
Yes.
And so kind of looking ahead going, okay, so because those are also questions. It's like, how do you have those conversations? How do you encourage and guide them? How do you show them the importance of work? How do you tell them about savings and spendings and the whole, Social Security and Medicare on the paycheck and what's the benefit of starting a business or looking at ways to do, side hustles along the way? All of those are real questions. And it's sort of like, where do I start?
That's right. That's right. Well, this class will walk you through, and the way that I've got it structured is, yes, I do teach it live for sure, where someone can take my class via Zoom or live in the Raleigh area. But I also have a self-paced experience where I have videoed myself teaching the class so that the parents can really become the facilitator of the experience. And so I've got like a 5-minute video that the parents or teacher would watch in advance of playing the video for the student. So a student can do it on their own, or, within a family, you guys can do it together, where you don't have to teach it. But the beauty is, when we talk about buying a car for the first time, I'll walk through depreciation, leasing versus buying, new car versus used. I'll do all that kind of nuts and bolts stuff. But then it leaves the parent the opportunity to talk about what happened in their lives. What was their first car and why, and all of those kinds of things. So, and then it's self-paced. The family can do it at whatever time works for them.
That's neat. The two options can have that family dynamic as well. What do you think are, sorry, I'm changing track here. So you mentioned some different stories earlier, a couple of different stories. Any story, and I guess 2 questions. How long have you had the curriculum available? And then you want to share 1 or 2, like, we'll call them success stories, like people who have taken it, made some great decisions, families who have like, oh my word, this has been awesome along the way. Any that you would want to share?
Sure, of course. So I wrote this curriculum for my son, like I said, in 2014. And then those original teenage boys, their siblings, that it was so transformative to that original 6 kids that they took it to, they took that knowledge home. And in fact, in one case, one of these moms didn't really even sort of tell the dad that her son was taking this class. I mean, it wasn't a secret, but, they didn't discuss it, like that. And this kid, they were out to eat. And it was a family with 5 children. And the oldest son, who was in my class, they were all sitting there. And one of the younger sons said, can I get seconds? They're at a restaurant. Can I get seconds? And one of the parents had said, no, this is all you get to eat. And he started fussing this younger sibling. And my student said, hey, look, mom and dad have a food budget. And there's only when that money is gone, that's all there is. And so they didn't budget for you to have 2 meals. They only budgeted for you to have 1. And the mom said, the dad looked over like with this surprised, like, what is this? And she's like, well, he's been taking a personal finance course. So that's, that was in 2014. Those parents encouraged me to teach it to the siblings, and it's kind of grown from there. In 2019, I launched it nationwide and have been going to homeschool curriculum or homeschool conferences, and it's available online. There's so many stories of the lights coming on with these kids. Another story I've got is there was this girl, this young lady, lovely young lady, who dances as her extracurricular activity. So we were in the Raleigh area, and she had heard, because she'd had young ladies from Meredith, which is a expensive private college in our area. These young ladies from Meredith have come to her dance studio to choreograph or whatever it is. So this young lady, she always said, I want to go to Meredith. I want to go to Meredith. And her parents did not have the money for Meredith. And her father is actually an alumni of the University of North Carolina. So he kept saying, hey, UNC is a good school. You ought to think about UNC because it's $18,000 a year versus Meredith, which is closer to 40. Or you ought to. And she's like, no, Dad, Meredith has such a good dance program. I want to dance in school. So fast forward, she gets into my class and she chooses Meredith, which of course then forces her to have student loan debt. And so the career she chose was being a writer. Well, it didn't take long for her to see that on a writer's salary, given the choices that she would make, like where she's going to live and the car she's going to have and food and clothes and entertainment, that she couldn't afford to live on a writer's salary with that student loan debt. And so she began to see about the University of North Carolina. And when she had her mind opened, she discovered that the University of North Carolina has got one of the premier writing degrees in the country. It's right in her backyard. And because she understood that what it was going to cost to go to a private school, she was willing to entertain this public school and actually found a school that's much better suited for who she's going to be. This young lady's not going to be a dancer when she grows up. She's going to be a writer, and UNC will train her to do that at a better return on her investment than Meredith would. So and I didn't have to convince. She came to that conclusion on her own after walking through these 20 lessons and seeing the financial impact of the choices that she's made.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is gold right there. That really is.
It is really gold. And I've got a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, and it is incredibly hard to kind of turn their ship in a correct direction through just using my words. They don't believe me. They just don't. They have to see it themselves. And this class will allow that to happen.
Wow. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to investigate this more. So for families listening to this, is there like a key takeaway that you would like them to have, in terms of, final thought,
Sure.
challenge, encouragement to them both? Anything you would like to share with them?
Yeah. So for me, I think of money as an instrument. Money is a tool for us to leverage to live our lives. And with any instrument or tool, there is a hands-on component to being able to master that. You just can't teach someone to play the piano by giving them a book on piano, techniques, or showing them a video of piano techniques. They have to be hands-on. And so I would encourage all parents to look for opportunities to put money in the hands of their kids so that their kids can see how fast it goes, how long it takes to accumulate enough to buy the thing that you want. These are lessons that our kids need to be learning while they are with us, but just letting them practice with kid size money, an allowance or grandma's birthday money or whatever. Then if we stop there, then when those kids get that first adult size paycheck at age 22, and they've never practiced with adult choices and adult money, chances are that first paycheck, those first couple of years, they are going to think they are rich, and they are going to spend and waste like they are rich. And it won't be for a few years till they figure out, oh no, I should have saved way more than I thought. I should have used that time and money wisely. And so I would encourage these families with older teens to let them practice with adult money using this class, because, otherwise, how do you do it? But everybody during these 18 years that they are in our homes, everybody ought to be giving their kids an opportunity to practice using money wisely.
I totally agree. I'm excited about the course you're offering. And for those who are feeling like me, they're like, man, where can I find you? Where can I learn more about Beyond Personal Finance? Where would you like them to go?
All right. So I have a website. It is www.bpfclass.com. So it's like Beyond Personal Finance Class. Okay. But I shortened it because it was so long. bpfclass.com. And there you can learn about it. I've got a quick 1-minute video that describes the class better than I can. And also is an opportunity to sign up. Every week, I put out an email to my subscribers who are raising younger kids and who are looking for tips and tricks that I have learned and implemented in my own life about raising these kids to be adults with money, responsibility, self-discipline, those kinds of traits. What it takes to be an adult is what I love to write about. I love to help people on their journey. And you can find me there and subscribe at the bpfclass.com.
Well, that web address and information, that's going to be in the show notes. So if you're listening, check out the show notes. You'll be able to reach out to Charla there, get all the information you need. Charla, thank you so much for joining me today. I know I've learned a lot. I know our audience has as well. And I'm excited for the journey you're on and the product you're trying to help people with, because that's really that's the end game, is to help people make good decisions.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I loved having this opportunity to talk about my product and the change that I'm seeing. So definitely reach out. If anybody's got any questions, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Great conversation with Charla. 3 things that jumped out at me. First, the way she talked about how no one is lectured into making good decisions, that people come to the conclusion on their own to make the right decisions. And so part of our job as parents is to help guide that conversation. The second thing was the quality of your life is based on the quality of your choices. So we have to make good choices, wise choices, and those will carry us forward. Last takeaway, money is an instrument or a tool, and with any instrument, there's a hands-on component in order to master it. So very much practice makes perfect. So being able to learn how to use money and how to use it wisely will definitely help not only our children, but us as we move forward. So great conversation. Check out the show notes for more information. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. Doing so will help others to find us. Check out the show notes for resource information. We encourage you to do that for links and other references. We'd like to hear from you, so you can message us your questions or comments on Facebook, Instagram, at Entrusting the Faith. You can email us at info@entrustingthefaith.com. If you go to our website, which is www.entrustingthefaith.com, you can sign up to our email list and receive free resources as well as upcoming podcast episode information. So check it out. Lastly, just remember, legacies are built a day at a time. So start now.